Welcome to the High Value Sales Show of Eversprint.com. I'm Malcolm Louie, the managing member of Eversprint, and today we're speaking with Megan Driscoll, the CEO and founder of PharmaLogics Recruiting, a bio-pharmaceutical recruiting company that places top talent at companies devoted to the development of medicine that improves and saves lives. Welcome to the call, Megan.
Thanks for having me.
Megan, you grew your company's revenue from $3.8 million in 2014 to $11 million in 2017, a 188% increase, and in 2018, you're on track to hit around $13 million. Before we talk about how you grew your company so fast, can you briefly share what your company does beyond my quick intro and how your company differs from the competition?
Sure. So we offer recruitment services internationally. We have an office in Basel, Switzerland to service our European clients. We've worked farther afield, but I would say in general, we're sort of more European, U.S.-based placement firm. We work with all kinds of companies, so not only just life science firms, both on the biotech or the pharma side, but companies that support those firms like CROs and CDMOs, as well as consulting firms who also provide services to that industry. So our main focus is to, again, focus on companies that are improving and saving lives. And then whatever talent needs they have, we help source and find them. And how we're different, we're really quite different, actually. One of the reasons, and this kind of relates back to what we'll talk about next, I'm sure, one of the reasons why the growth has been so substantial over the last several years is the launch of our anti-fee model, which we basically launched when we came out of the last recession, so 2009. And essentially what we do now is we provide our services for roughly half the cost of traditional recruitment services. And that was a bit of a game changer for us because we've not sacrificed any of the quality or the process. If anything, actually, we've sort of amped up the partnership and the collaboration with our clients. So they're getting a better product and they're paying less money for it. So that definitely has differentiated ourselves substantially.
Would you say your anti-fee model is the number one biggest driver of your growth?
Yeah, and just to kind of summarize it, because most people are familiar with recruitment and how it's delivered. The traditional way of recruitment is I send you candidates, you pick one, the one you choose, you pay me a fee, and the fee is always between 20 and 30% of that person's base salary, and I get paid that when the candidate actually starts with you. The way we do it is we actually are billing hourly, and we've capped it at that 25% fee. And over the last 10 years, we've maintained an average fee of 13.5%, which is, like I said, roughly half of a 25% sort of traditional fee. And so we kind of just have the 25% fee that is dominant of in any recruitment industry. It's not just in biopharma. It's kind of across the board. Is kind of made up. It's not really based on any substantial data like time it takes to find candidates or process or client. It's just kind of the fee you pay. It's kind of like real estate fees. Like, why do we pay 5% to our real estate agent? Who made that up? I don't know. So what we've done is coming out of the recession, I was looking for something to kind of keep us going. We were concerned that we might go out of business, actually, too. Nobody was hiring. I mean, it was obviously, as you know, a terrible year, 2009. And I read an article in an entrepreneur magazine about a comment that Steve Jobs had made, which says, in a recession, cannibalize yourself. You can afford to do something crazy because your operating expenses are so low that whatever you try, if it doesn't work, you can just do it. You can just go back to what you were doing before. So eat yourself for lunch. And so that's kind of what I decided to do. I decided to kind of eat ourselves for lunch and totally do away with the 25% sort of fee model and go to something that would be more attractive from a cost perspective and without sacrificing any of the service that you get from working with a retained search recruiter. And it really took off. I mean, we kind of became like a no-brainer, like, why would I go pay a full fee when I can have all this service and pay less?
Right, exactly. And even though your revenue might be cut in half, you made it up on the volume side, and just from having more clients, you end up getting more repeat business as well.
Exactly. We went from making maybe 15 to 30 to 40 placements per year to making hundreds. I think in 2018 we'll place over 500 people internationally.
Wow, that's good. So the anti-fee model, a big driver of your success. Are there any other drivers? I mean, maybe two other drivers that drove your sales over the past couple of years?
Yeah, I think there's unintended and unexpected consequences to making a change, like the one that we made. One of them was the types of people who be attracted to work in our kind of new environment proved to be also a huge benefit. So in order to deliver this fee, this level, this sort of 50% off fee, ultimately there is no big shiny fee. So a recruitment firm oftentimes will attract, and I would say any company, will attract high sales focused people. They want to earn a lot of money. They're definitely, money is a big motivator for them. And I'm everyone I meet has met somebody in sales who they've not been fond of because they're salesy, and they would kind of like cut you in the back and steal the money out of your pancreas if they knew it was in there. And that was kind of the type of person that was a successful recruiter in our office. They weren't people that you'd want to go have dinner with after work. That's for sure. And this new model, because of the pricing structure, because we have to keep the price low, and because there's no person that's going to earn a $30,000 fee at the end of the placement, has allowed us to hire a lot of younger, sort of young and hungry fresh grads or people out of school maybe a year or two. And their cost basis is much lower. But they're also incredibly excited. They're like able to be molded into kind of what you want them to do. You can teach them kind of the ethical right way to be in sales, and it's not sales at all costs. And so our sales team is not what I would call truly sales. I would say, it's like very combination of persuasive and salesy, but also a huge dose of customer service focused. And so that's been a really nice reason for our success that I sort of unintended. I didn't know that by hiring younger people that I would get this kind of personnel of a group of people that I really enjoy so much. So much more.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah, it makes for a more pleasant environment and everyone enjoys it better, and that in turn also gets better results for the company, for themselves, for the career, for the clients. So it's a win-win-win all around.
Yeah, for sure.
Is there a third driving factor of your sales over the past few years?
I would say that in general, I always advocate for the biopharmaceutical industry at large, or life sciences in general. I do think that it's got the best wherewithal. If I were starting another business, I would consider starting a business that's aligned with life sciences, especially at the time of year, or the sort of period of time we're in right now, where we're very likely going to have another recession in the next 18 months to 2 years. I would want to be considering aligning myself with biopharma if it's possible. They're the first to feel the recovery of a recession, and they're the last to feel the effects of once it started. And I've been through two now because I was recruiting in the 2002 in biopharmaceutics as well then, and in the 2008 recession. And in both times, we really didn't have pain for like 6 to 12 months after everybody else was feeling pain. And we recovered almost 2 years ahead of everybody else too. So I do just think that we have headwinds being in this industry. It's just a strong industry, and one that's, just driven by the need, right? And that's not going to change, especially with the baby boomers.
Right. Now, just to recap, the three factors that were driving your sales: one, your anti-fee model; two, you're able to hire younger people at a lower cost, but at the same time, they're people that you can train up and indoctrinate into your culture and way of doing things, which has multiple benefits. And the third one is that you're in a space that's resistant to recessions as much as one space can be, and at the same time, it's also a growth sector as well. Would that about sum it up?
That about sums it up. Nice job.
Great. A quick question on your anti-fee model. You're spending, your revenue, assuming the number of clients and engagements you have remain flat, essentially your revenue gets cut in half by your pricing structure. Now, does that essentially mean, your margin was big enough to absorb that? Because you said before, you're still maintaining the same quality of work. So, how did all that work out?
Well, traditional recruitment firms, I would say, again, I'm speaking about it from biopharmaceutical perspective, but this is the same in most industries. Most recruitment firms are what I would call kind of like mom and pops, or a guy in his basement putting up a shingle, basically. They're individual or 10, 12 employees. And the reason for that is they don't need to have a lot of employees to make a lot of money because the volume doesn't need to be that big. They can survive. A good recruiter, right, on a retained search making 25%, if he's making $50,000, $60,000 fees, can only need to make 5, 10, 15 of those a year to have a really good year, particularly if they work for themselves in their basement and they get to take all of that revenue in for themselves. Our model is completely different than that. We are much more based on volume. And what happens when a company sees that they can use us and spend $15,000 instead of $30,000 is they think, well, gosh, I'm going to give them a bunch more work. So we don't get a job from a client per year. We get, on average, between 10 and 15 jobs from clients on an annual year. And 95% of our clients repeat with us year after year, and that's been true. That number's held in the mid to high 90s since we launched in 2009. So we rely on our existing customers taking us into the following year. And we've done that because we've delivered a great service model. So it's the price, but it's also that they're getting, people in seats, and placements are being made and they're filling their needs with great candidates. If you don't have that, then it doesn't matter what we charge, right? Because we could charge 50% off, and if the candidate stinks or we don't come to a placement, they're not going to continue working with us. So the model is only successful if we are able to build on business year after year. And so far, we've been able to do that for the last several years.
Right. So it sounds to me that the way one driver as to why it works really is that essentially you're not paying for marketing costs and new client acquisition costs, and you're getting a lot of repeat business, and that's how this model is really working.
I would say that was true. In order for us to get where we are today, we needed to have repeat business. I mean, for most of the years, I would say like 2011, 12, 13, and 14, we couldn't keep up with the amount of work we were being given. I couldn't hire enough people to fulfill the orders that we were getting. Okay. It really was we were overwhelmed with the amount of success that we were having. I didn't even have a business development team at all because we just didn't need to do business development because we couldn't keep up with the work we had. It also led, and as it developed over time, we also got large contracted projects. So we would have to hire 20 people in the EU, medical directors, for example. And then that led to a 40-person build-out. And so our pricing structure definitely changed where it's not hourly, it's more like fee-based. We're still 50% off, but we're kind of getting it paid in sort of large chunks up front, so to speak. But we're still charging only 50%. So that was kind of, I would say at first, that's how we grew just organically in that way. But the industry is small, ultimately, and there's like 10 or 15 big players, and then there's the rest of the folks. We do a lot of work with small businesses, and small businesses, a venture-backed life science firm startup may be around in 3 years. It may not. We're kind of hedging our bets and hoping that out of the 100 small business clients that we work with, that 3 of them will take off. And if they take off, they could hire 60, 70, 80 people in a year. And we want to get that work if we worked with them in their first year and they gave us 10 jobs. They also don't have a lot of bandwidth. They don't have a lot of human resources support or help. We provide all of that to them as well. So we'll actually write job descriptions, and we'll help them work through the interview questions and behavioral interviewing technique. And so we give them a lot of services. Like I said, we overdo it with regard to the services we provide to our clients because we know that we need them to continue coming back to us year after year.
Right.
But things did change in about 2014 when we really needed to do some business development to grow this even further and kind of expand. So 2016 was our first real investment in business development. We hired somebody full-time. We hired somebody full-time in 2015, but we got so much work that we had to put them back into a project role. But 2016 was the first time we actually hired a business development person, and then in 2017 we built out that team. So now we have a team of 9 people globally who are doing business development for us, and some of them have only been doing it for less than 6 months. So we've made a real investment recently in sort of acquiring new business and going out there and marketing to get it. Up until that point, we really didn't need to.
Okay. Can you share how your biz dev team goes about finding new business?
I think it's very traditional. Traditional in what I mean by that is by way of the way you get business in general. Not traditional, probably by the way that recruiting firms get business. Traditional recruitment firms will go after business via the hiring manager. So they'll call a director of QA, for example, and pitch a quality assurance candidate to them. We don't do that. We only approach human resources, talent, CEOs or CFOs. We are not going in kind of that back door, if you will. We want to kind of walk in the front door. We want it to be a collaboration and a partnership right from the get-go with human resources. And if they're not on board, we want to work with them until they can become on board with our platform and our programs. So essentially what we try to do is just we're trying to make connections with human resources and talent acquisition people across the globe and getting them familiar, if they're not familiar with us already, with how our products work. We have a couple different options of how someone could work with us. Anti-fee is one of them. The small business platform is another. They're all slightly different, but they're sort of catered toward the size of company and what a company might need and what they're trying to accomplish. Sometimes we provide on-site support. For example, we have someone living out in Seattle providing on-site support for a very large client out there. So that's essentially what we're doing is kind of reaching out, contacting by phone, by email, very traditional in that regard, and trying to get a meeting with them.
Okay. Now, are you doing any sort of marketing or advertising to get people to raise their hand and maybe even reach out to you directly?
Yeah, so hard to, I find marketing, I'm sure everybody feels this way, but it's really hard to know whether or not the money you spend is giving you any, what's your return on your investment. For marketing is always something that's really hard to attain. We work primarily in LinkedIn, in both our advertisements and our reaching out. The vast majority, like if you're not on LinkedIn in the life science industry, then you're probably not really working full time. So it is a great resource for us, and that's where we traditionally spend our dollars.
Okay. And again, you're not advertising on LinkedIn. You're actually doing a manual reach out to individuals.
No, we are advertising. We're doing both. Yeah.
Okay, so you are advertising on LinkedIn. So you're doing like the pay-per-click ads and
yeah, it's a little bit of a bigger program. We kind of have like a yearly spend that we have to spend, and then we create targeted ads and things like that.
Okay. And the ROI on that's been pretty good?
Who knows? I can't say. I wish I could say. I always have. I always have wanted to say, this directly led us to this opportunity. I've never been able to create a clear line into those things. Now, do I get phone calls? Yes, all the time we get phone calls and people calling me even directly. I've been in this industry for almost 20 years. And so, but usually they're people who I've worked with 15 years ago or 10 years ago who are reaching out. Now, did they see a LinkedIn ad and it reminded them to call me? Maybe. I don't know. I don't know.
Okay.
And we don't have a good mechanism for finding out. That's a tool that somebody should develop.
Right. Okay.
A fantastic ROI, marketing ROI.
Yeah. There are ways of doing it. It depends if you have your system set up or if people click on an ad and then you start tracking who clicked on it and how they progress through the client journey from initial click all the way to speaking with one of your team
I think
members.
that's really easy to track when you have an actual product that you're selling.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like when you're a services business, it's not as easy to just make those direct line connections. And often those that we can track, when we do see that has happened, they don't go anywhere. We end up not signing up that client for one reason or the other. It's interesting.
Right, it is interesting.
But I know, we do see that tracking. We are able to see when those things are happening, and I haven't seen a single time where we've someone's reached out to us and it's resulted in a big project. Most of it is relationships, and maybe it's just that we have such a strong name for ourselves in the industry already, and we've been doing this. I've been in recruitment in this space for 20 years. I mean, a lot of the people that we work with are people that I've known. I mean, the industry is very insular in that regard. When someone leaves a talent acquisition position at Amgen, for example, they often wind up at Pfizer down the street, so it's not like they leave the industry very often.
Right. For 2019, what are your plans? What are your targets?
So we have a new BD team, relatively, most of them have less than a year of experience. So we're hoping to really kind of cash in on their efforts, if you will. We've decided recently, as of about maybe 4 or 5 months ago, that up until this point, we've only been a permanent placement organization. So only placing people who are full-time, looking for full-time work, only working on jobs that are full-time. And we've been getting requests of some of our clients to ask us to help them with temporary staff. And although it might seem like it's the same business, it's really not the same business. It's not the same group of candidates that you would call for a temporary role that you would call for a permanent role. So it is kind of a different business line. But we did decide that that was something that at this point we could handle in terms of having the process and the setup to be able to do that. So we did launch contract staffing this year, and we're hoping to potentially acquire a smaller contract staffing firm in 2019. We've got a couple that we're in communication with already, such that we can kind of like gaslight that group, basically.
Right.
We really want to be full service by the end of 2019. We hope to be full service.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Are you comfortable sharing your revenue targets in 2019? I know in 2018, the year is over now. It looks like you're booked about $13 million in 2018. Can you share what your revenue targets are for 2019?
Yeah. So 2019, without the acquisition, we should be close to $15 million, I would say, for sure. With the acquisition, there's one in particular that we're hopeful about, we'd be probably close to $30 million if that were to go through.
Wow, nice. That's a big jump.
Yeah, contract staffing is very low margin work. So perm placement is very high margin, 30% margins, and contract, you're lucky to get 10.
Wow, big difference.
Yeah, huge difference. So although the revenue number looks really good, the bottom line is not nearly as good.
And I guess the reason for that is that the amount of time that you need to invest to find a candidate is about the same between the two, but the problem is that they are leaving and then you need to fill them again and again. Is that why the margins are so low?
No, that's not really it. It's much more about the margin between what you pay the candidate and what you bill the client.
Okay.
Right. So I'm taking the revenue. If someone's on their books, let's say they annually make $100,000, I get to take that $100,000 as revenue to my company, but it's not really $100,000 because I have to pay the candidate $80,000 of that 100. I'm only making $20,000.
You're actually hiring them and sourcing them.
Exactly.
Okay. You're not like finding them a temp staff that they know that they're going to keep only for 6 months on their books.
Yeah.
You're actually now an agency with a team of people that you are contracting out.
Exactly.
Yep. Yeah, got it.
Yeah, and contract staffing companies look really big because they have these really huge revenue numbers, but often they make less profit than I make. My $11 million is probably the equivalent to a $100 million firm in terms of the amount of revenue that we both are making, amount of profit rather, or EBITDA that we're making.
Right, exactly. Now, in my conversations with other recruiting firms, one of the challenges they find is finding the candidates to place. But you haven't mentioned that as a challenge. Is that because you've got some secret sauce there?
Yeah, that's not really a challenge.
Okay.
That's not one of the more challenging is finding enough recruiters to come work at our office. That to me has been a challenge and continues to be a challenge, and I think will continue, especially as unemployment falls. In that way, I would not necessarily be upset about a recession. Quite frankly, it is very, very hard for us to find people to come work for PharmaLogics, even though we're an employer of choice. We pay very well, above what I think other new grads or fresh grads would earn. It's just there's just not a lot of people out there looking for work.
So finding candidates to place is really not the challenge. Which maybe I haven't talked to enough people, but that sounds very unusual.
Yeah, I mean, I would say again, being in the industry for 20 years, it's a very small industry. Everybody knows everybody. I would say I was a very first responder on LinkedIn. With LinkedIn Recruiter, you have access to anybody. And the engine that we use to find candidates is, I would say, very assembly line. That's how I like to refer to it. We have a very strict policy or way, SOP, for how we go about getting talent in the door. And getting candidates is a non-issue for us.
Okay, good. Fantastic.
Much more difficult for us is managing the end stage process, which requires, I would say, kind of high-level project management skills. And when you have a young office, you have young people and they don't necessarily have high-level project management skills. So more of our issue is just being able to manage the candidates through the end game, through the interview process and kind of negotiating their offer. Because a person that's doing that is maybe younger than a 45-year-old seasoned recruiter that works in his basement and has been doing this for 20 years. That whole part of managing a candidate through the process is quite easy for them.
Right. Okay. Two last questions for you, Megan. First, who are your ideal clients? And the second one, what's the best way for them to contact your team?
Yeah, I mean, our ideal clients, it's a pretty broad group, right? It'd be anywhere globally, either a life science, biotech, pharma, or med device firm, or any company that services those kinds of firms could be a potential client. Anyone looking for talent in those areas. And it doesn't necessarily need to be in science directly. So we place a lot of people in finance and accounting, in human resources, in administration. As long as they're sitting at a company that is improving and saving lives, we're willing to take on that work. Our recruitment process works in any industry. We've just chosen to sort of focus on helping companies that are devoted to that kind of development of drugs. And so the best way to reach us, and we have a website, www.pharmalogicsrecruiting.com, and you can always find me personally on LinkedIn. My name is Megan Driscoll, and link in with me directly.
Great. Megan, could you spell your last name to make it obvious to people who are looking for you on LinkedIn?
Yeah, for sure. Driscoll, and my first name, Megan, Megan.
All right, fantastic. Thanks so much for being on the call, Megan. I really appreciate hearing the insights about how you grew your company so fast.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
We've been speaking with Megan Driscoll, the CEO and founder of PharmaLogics Recruiting, about her company's rapid growth. For interviews with other fast-growing, high-value sales companies, or to learn how we can accelerate your firm's high-value sales through automation, visit eversprint.com.